Hey guys, welcome in. My name is Tam. I'm also known as the Enlightened Auntie. All of my information, how to contact me, can be found below in the description box. This is Hang Time with Tam. We're just gonna chit chat a little bit about today's Twitter feed. So, topic today is blended families, and I guess the idea for the thread kind of came from thinking about, and it was really weird how it just ran across my mind about, I was kind of thinking about parenthood just in general, and how long I've been a parent prior to actually becoming a parent by birth. I'm birthing my own child. I met my husband at age 23 and he had a 2-year-old son. And so, because I was committed to the relationship, I therefore was committed to being a parental figure in this boy's life. And so it kind of got me thinking about how people enter relationships with people, single people that have no children, how they enter relationships with somebody who does have children, and how those relationships impact the children. And if you have children, you bring more children into the fold, how it affects, all of them collectively as our family has expanded. His mother also had more children, so her family expanded, and kind of, just all the things that involves. So, but I was thinking of it from the terms, from the position of the man. And I say that because I was kind of like thinking too about, like, my mother was also a stepchild. And my mother also had stepchildren because I had a brother and sister. And so I remember, and then with my mother being a stepchild, she had a stepbrother, but I remember the way that my grandmother would talk about him and the way I wouldn't say treated him, because I never saw him, it was before my time, but just the way that she talked about him, it was never really in a positive light. And it never really seemed, it seemed more like she was angry that he had a life outside of her, and she was angry that he had a child. I don't know, but I don't know the circumstances behind, when they hooked up and all. I don't know that, so whatever. But I just remember that kind of energy. And then, but my granddaddy, he like raised my mom. And the same thing with my stepdad. He had 2 children of his own that he really was kind of distanced from, but he raised me as his own. And I grew up feeling as though we were pretty close. In hindsight, I don't know, neither here nor there. But I always felt like and it's kind of crazy because as much as I was like chasing after this attention and love and this father-daughter relationship from my own biological father, I had one at home. Like the universe that was one of my, we'll talk about that another time, but that was like one of the biggest lessons for me just through this whole journey and growth process of understanding that while my father could not be what I needed him to be, the universe blessed me with a replacement and gave me what I needed. Okay? So hold on to that, because it's the same thing with like my grandfather, my mother's biological father, did not stick around long enough to, develop any kind of formative relationship with her. So it's the same. And this story even kind of goes back to, we'll talk about it in another episode of unpacking like generational trauma, because that's one of them, abandonment. So, but I recognize where my granddaddy, he raised my mother like she was his own. You know what I'm saying? They had the same kind of relationship that me and my stepdad had. Then fast forward to me meeting my husband at 23. My stepson had just turned 2 at the time that we met. Like literally the boy turned 2 in the beginning of October. We met at the end of October. So he just turned 2. And so for me, when I found out that he had a son, I was already kind of all in. I really, I liked him and really wanted him to be a part of my life. But I understood him having a son was going to definitely impact the relationship because I didn't have any experience with children. I didn't know shit about kids. I had always thought, I've always wanted children, but then I met my stepson, and it's funny because 2 is a very terrible age to be introduced to children at all. Like, I think that was one of the things that my husband could not understand when I tried to explain it to him, because I'm like, he had nieces and nephews and he had been around little kids. So that for him, kids being around other children, little kids, was natural and normal for him. For me as an only child, being around I didn't have any. There were no little kids in my family. I didn't have any friends that had babies or anything like that. I was technically the last one of my friends to start having kids, but like I didn't have anybody with babies and I didn't have that. So my introduction to a child or being involved in a child's life at age 2, terrible too. Yeah, required hella patience. But when I knew that I wanted to be with a man, I also knew that I had to commit to the child. So it raised the thought, don't become invested in a man's life who has a child or children unless you intend to fully support him in his efforts to be a good father, because that's what we're doing here. We're encouraging good fathers, right? If you're worried that he'll have to split his attention between you and his child, just leave him alone, because that's selfish. This also applies to men coming into a woman's life who has a child or children. Her priority should be her child or children, not assisting you in getting your dick wet. If your selfish ass can only think of yourself and your own needs, just leave parents alone. Like, leave them alone, right? What does support look like? I'm glad you asked, because it's not finances. If you're out here making folks feel guilty because their children come first, you're a piece of shit. I will die on this hill. If you're making people choose between you and their responsibilities, you're a piece of shit. When I met my husband at 23, he had a 2-year-old son. I had 0 experience with children, no young cousins, and no babies in my friend circle. I fully stepped into being a bonus parent from the get-go. I began playing a parental role years before I birthed my own. Yeah, and ironically, being introduced to a child at 2 is kind of a fucked up joke. But I was all in. And it's funny because even then I remember I was doing stuff and my husband would be like, God, I don't even know how we're going to survive with our own children, because I was spending money like crazy on just his son, because I was like really into the whole parent thing. But what I found, which is kind of ironic considering that after dealing with him at 2, that kind of made me reframe the way I thought about children, because I realized that I wasn't quite ready. And so when we got married, I went in with the idea or thinking that I was not going to have any children. I made it really clear to him, hey, I don't want any kids. You got one. I'm good. Like, whatever. Because I also recognize too, it's weird because my mother had told me stories my whole life about the way that, she kind of had me under thumb. It was, I made sure that I called your bluff early. I made sure that, you knew who was boss, so that I didn't have to be tested. And when I tried some of those same things, like the way that she would kind of handle me. When I tried some of that stuff with my stepson, it did not work. And it was like, we were like oil and water. We were like oil and water. But again, I had no experience with children. Literally, the only experience I had was just being raised by my own mother. But then when I began to, even before he came to live with us, I kind of tested the waters with just leaning into what I felt natural in doing, which was like simple things like giving him choices where I didn't really have those growing up. I gave him choices just because it made sense, you know? So there were certain things, and it's really crazy because by the time I had my first son, I had him in the middle of my Saturn return at 28. And so all of that was traumatic, just the Saturn return, giving birth, becoming a parent and not really knowing how to nurture him. And then kind of be available for my stepson, who is a whole different age bracket, right? So at the time that my son was born, his mother had also had a baby. And so in the same year, he became a big brother twice. So that was a lot, and it was a lot for him. And I knew that it was a lot for him because he was used to being an only child. Now, all of a sudden, I got a baby brother and a baby sister in 2 different households. But we always made accommodations for him no matter where we lived. He always had his own room. We always saw to it that he had his own space. I always made sure to hold my husband accountable for being the father that he needed to be. Like, I thought it was important. And I didn't have to work too hard at it because he thought it was important. You know, when his son was born, he decided, you know, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to focus on being a better person and a good parent. And so when we decided to come together, I embraced being a step parent. Now, dealing with his mother might have been it was difficult. I ain't gonna lie, it was difficult. And it took many, many years to finally realize and understand that you really cannot control other people's crazy. So, was there a lot of drama? Absolutely. Could a lot of it have been avoided? Absolutely. But we dealt with it, and I was all in. And I didn't have to be, but I chose to be there. I chose to be supportive. I chose to, fight the good fight, if you will. I think the thing that I was thinking about mostly this morning is that I look at the dynamic between my own parents, the way that my dad was with me versus the way that my mom was with his children, and how my granddad was with my mom versus the way he was with his own son. And I think the part that I'm grappling with, or the part that I'm having I don't know if it's conflict. I don't know what that is. I mean, there's a recognition there. Absolutely. And there's no judgment here. This is just me talking. I find it very, it's weird because I did recognize the dynamic of jealousy in my dad. Like when my mom was focused too much on me or focused too much on my son, my dad would kind of turn up a little. And so I know that he was very much like he wanted her all to himself, which I feel like is selfish as hell. I feel like it's selfish as hell when you have children. When you have children, your children come first. I mean, for me, my kids come first. I love my husband, absolutely, hands down. Love the man to death. My children come first. I birthed them. And granted, these fathers have not birthed these children, but their children, their seeds. Those are their kids. So you as a woman engage with a man who has children, if you gonna love on that man, you better love the hell out them kids. You ain't gotta love their mother. Fuck her. You ain't gotta love her. But if you do, that's even better. Why not come together and be cool with each other for the sake of the children versus this adversarial shit? Unless you was over there screwing her man and that's how that shit came about. I don't know. But I'm saying, if you're gonna deal with somebody, man or woman, they got kids. If you can't be with those people and love them and love their children as your own, do not fuck with them. Don't fuck with them. Because when you fuck with them, you fucking with their kids too. And I'm like big on the mama bear energy. I'm a mother. I chose to be a mother. And granted, and it's not a secret because I don't lie to my kids. Every last one of them was a surprise. Not one of my children were planned. But the difference is I wanted them. I wanted to be a parent. I wanted to be a mom. Was I shocked? Yes. But when I had them and I knew that I was having this baby, all I knew is that I just wanted to be a mom. Blending our families has always been really kind of interesting because sometimes, I don't necessarily subscribe to the whole kumbaya, we all gotta be, big old happy family. I tried that before and that didn't really work out. I tried to be really cool with, my stepson's mom and their family and all of that. But it's always, I've recognized that each time I've extended myself or opened up my home, that in the end, I'm always the bad guy. I ain't got time for that shit no more. So all the kumbaya and we ain't doing, I'm good. I don't need to do all that. We've always kind of done like separate holidays and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that either. It's like when he was little, it was really bad because we would, and this is like those, like baby mama from, not, I don't want to call it, well, baby mama from hell. It is one of those situations because my step brother and sister, their mom used to do the same thing. So like so my stepbrother and sister, when they would come over on the weekends, they would always come over looking rough, ragged, and crazy. Like my brother's hair was always looking crazy. My sister's hair was always looking crazy. They were wearing clothes that was too small and shoes that was all run over. Even though he was paying child support, she would send them over looking crazy so he could go out and buy clothes for them and send them home with new clothes because she didn't want to spend no money. Yeah. We lived that life too, but I played a better game. I just made sure we had her clothes and our clothes. So we had clothes. I had a whole wardrobe. The boy had his own room. He had toys. He had a whole, he had a whole shebang bang going on at our house. But everything that was in our house stayed in our house. If you coming over, you're going to strip out of those clothes and you're going to put on all these new clothes. And these are the clothes you're going to wear while you're here. And when you go home, you're going to go home in the same clothes she sent you in. Because I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game. But this is the kind of thing, it's like when you're involved, and I honestly think, like in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, she completely hated me because she felt like I just, ramrodded into their lives and stole something that wasn't stealing anything. She felt like I took it from her. Whatever. Like I said, neither here nor there. But I feel like it was almost like, and I felt like everything that I tried to do as this, I was not trying to be fun time parent, but everything I was trying to do in terms of what was in the best interest of their son was always met with some kind of resistance and drama from his mother. And I wasn't trying to replace her. I wasn't trying to take her place. I was trying to be cool with her. But there was always this, you don't have to listen to her. She ain't your real mom. And I remember like at 4, the boy was 4 years old and told me, you're not my mom. You're not my real mommy because I didn't come from your uterus. And I was like, say what? 4 years old. Spell it. You don't even know what the hell a uterus is. I mean, stuff like that. Like, baby mama drama from hell. Yeah, it was bad. Anyway, if you can get through that part, shit. Hey, I mean, the boy's 28 now. So we're just making it. I mean, we made it to 18, but I mean, literally, it was a long haul. Those early years were really hard, but I knew what I wanted. And if you aren't willing to make certain sacrifices, and this is not about sacrificing yourself, but yo, your ego takes a back seat when it comes to somebody else's kid. You know, I would never put my, and it's funny, I keep having these like really weird flashbacks of memories of things I remember hearing and things I remember seeing from my past that totally relate to this topic. And I'm just like, wow, it's crazy. But it's like, why wouldn't you want somebody to love on your kid, but why wouldn't you extend that same grace to theirs? I mean, these are just questions. No accusations. Thoughts. Because I really feel like some of those interactions did shape the early years of parenting, because I honestly didn't know what the hell I was doing. But the level of indifference, or, I guess indifference is a good word. I guess the level of indifference that my mother showed towards my step siblings, I think because I was struggling, it was like one of those things of being in two worlds. So on one hand, I was trying to be kind of like an ally parent, support. I just really, I was trying to be into it. But then with my struggle, when I was struggling with it and I was going to other people for support, it was met with this weird, like, he ain't your kid anyway, so why bother type vibe of distance and what do you call indifference? I can't call it anything else but indifference. It was indifference. And I struggled with that because I couldn't be indifferent. I didn't know how to be indifferent simply because I did care, so I think that's where it starts. Like, I think maybe that's what it was. Like, my grandmother didn't care to be a step parent, so she didn't want to have to deal with somebody else's kid. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's how my mother felt. Maybe I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with these kids because these kids ain't mine and they're whatever. I don't know. It's weird because I ain't never felt that way. I've never felt, even before I met my husband, I dated a guy for a little while who had a son, and it was the most amazing relationship to watch. I loved watching him interact with his son because I was just like, wow. Like, that's what parenthood is. Like, you are active, you are engaged, you're doing stuff, you're like really all into it. Like, that's what parenthood is. So in my mind, even before I met my husband, I think too, even in my own childhood, the way my dad was with me, like my stepdad did with me all the things that a dad would do with their kid. I truly believe that he kind of wanted me to be a boy because we were doing lots of boy sport shit that I wasn't into, but I went ahead and did it anyway. I went ahead and played basketball and played baseball, and wasn't interested in neither one of those sports, but he played with me, so we played. But my dad did those things with me. Of course, the learning curve, I thought that all children were born with this innate sense of artistic creativity because I'm an artist. And I remember buying him a coloring book. He was like 3. I bought him a coloring book, some crayons. You know, I always keep that kind of stuff around just for myself. And I asked him to color for me. I was like, oh, here, you know, I thought he would, you know, kind of do his thing while I'm in the kitchen washing dishes or something. And I was like, here, I gave him a coloring book and gave him the crayons. And I was like, here, I want you to color for me. He's like, okay. He sat in there. He was sitting on the stairs for the longest, minding his business. And then he came back and he was waving the book and he was like, I colored. And I opened it, but I flipped through every page. I didn't see a single page colored. Do you know what he did? He drew a little circle about this big on each page in different colors. Yeah. That was my first. And then the little boy called me a bitch, but we ain't gonna talk about that. He almost got thrown out the window for that. I can laugh about it now, but that shit wasn't funny at that time. He was 2 and he said he was jumping, and we lived upstairs and there were people below us, and he was jumping on the stairs, and I was like, hey, stop jumping. And he put his hands on his hips, and he used to refer to his mother by her first name. I ain't gonna out her like that, but he used to put his hands on his hips, and he said to her, he was like, I could jump in her house, bitch. Baby, when I tell you, I almost picked that 2-year-old boy up and threw his little tiny ass out the window, because there was a window right there. And then I marched upstairs to tell his daddy, and his daddy laughed. He thought that shit was funny. I was furious. I'm like, whoop that boy's ass and then throw him out the window, please. Ah! Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah. And then it's funny because I thought my stepson was a terror at 2, and then I had 3 children of my own who were absolute nightmares at those ages. Anywho, that's my time today. Basically, the whole point is if you ain't all in, don't do it. Don't waste anybody's time who has kids and get their kids all involved, and you can't handle the heat of somebody's obligations and priorities being their children first. Period. Sometimes blended families can be a hot ass nightmare mess. I tried my best to keep things flowing evenly and smoothly. Did we have drama? Yeah, we did. And we survived. But I think that was a testament to our relationship and our dedication to our marriage and our family. Truly. But it really has to be, I mean, you gotta really be, priority has to be the children. And if it's not, then you in it for the wrong damn reason. I said it. Anywho, that's my time today. I don't think I have anything else. No, I don't have anything else. We'll talk about something else next time. Hope y'all are having a fine day, afternoon, night, whatever time you happen to catch this. Please like, share, and subscribe if you think the content is valuable. I appreciate you so much, and I hope that you join me next time. All right, take care. And also catch me on Saturdays on the Love and Science channel at 1:11 Central Time, 11:11 Pacific Standard.